went to Brunswick, I visited where Ahmaud fell. I would go there and sit there just to have that connection on where he took his last breath. I thought Ahmaud was just running in my neighborhood. I had no idea that he had ventured out into a neighborhood across the highway.
There's a highway that cuts through Brunswick that takes vacationers off to pretty beaches.
Interstate 17 works as a kind of dividing line between Brunswick and Satilla Shores. The people who live on the Satilla Shores side are more affluent. They have better schools, better housing. The people that live on Ahmaud's side of Interstate 17 are, for the most part, impoverished. And so you can imagine what it feels like to be separated from another way of life, and not by a lot of distance. And I think that had something to do with why Ahmaud would run on the other side of Interstate 17, be able to see another way of life and imagine it for himself.
Wanda lived in a neighborhood with mixed nationalities. And she said that he was safe until he crossed the road into the white neighborhood.
Was there a racial divide? Was he running in the white section of town?
He was. If I would have known, I would have asked him to stop because I knew it wasn't safe. I've been a resident of Glenn County since I was like 18, so I know that that stuff is there.
When you say that stuff is there, what do you mean?
The prejudice, the racism.
In order to get to Satilla Shores from his neighborhood, Ahmaud had to run by residences that had Confederate flags flying out front.
I hate to say it, but racial profiling does happen here. And I've experienced it myself. And I'm a pastor. It's unfortunate, but it does happen.
A lot of people classified this case as Ahmaud Arbery was guilty of one thing, running while black. This is a story about power, really. I'm in a small Georgia town. It's who you knew and who you didn't know. And Ahmaud Arbery's mother had no connections, didn't know anybody.
I knew that I had to do something because I was being ignored. Days and weeks had passed, and these people were still free.
To have to deal with your son being murdered, and then nobody's arrested, no justice.
They absolutely underestimated Wanda Cooper-Jones.
She was dogged in her pursuit of the truth in this case.
They thought that one single black woman was not going to be as disruptive as she ultimately proved to be.
There was clearly some conflicts right away.
Jackie Johnson immediately recognized she had a problem because Greg McMichael had worked for her.
Glenn County District Attorney Jackie Johnson recused herself after the shooting happened. A district attorney from a neighboring area, George Barnhill, picks up the case.
George Barnhill is another longtime district attorney in South of Georgia.
Basically, I was hoping that the DA would call me and tell me that he had indictments for arrest. So that was my prayer.
At the same time, the country was finding out about this COVID outbreak. And so you had a local tragedy taking place, but then you had a national, global tragedy that was taking place. And I think it was pushed aside.
So she starts digging into this herself by Googling. She didn't have a lawyer, she didn't have investigators. She went out, she Googled.
So I turned into an investigator.
Wanda says she found a connection between Greg McMichael and George Barnhill on social media.
I went to social media and found Gregory McMichaels and his friends named George Barnhill.
The district attorney?
Yes. So then when I went to Mr. Barnhill's page, I saw he had a son.
She finds out that George Barnhill's son works for the DA in Glenn County, where Greg McMichael had worked all those years.
The new DA had personal connections and ties with both Jackie Johnson and the McMichaels himself.
She told me that she didn't think it was right for the case to go to him. And she was on the phone calling the Attorney General. She was calling anybody who would listen.
Every morning, I wake up and make a phone call, and no one would return my phone calls.
I couldn't imagine what she felt like as a mother and having door after door slam in your face, but she kept on pursuing, she kept on digging.
Wanda's tireless efforts eventually yielded results.
George Barnhill would recuse himself from the case because of Wanda Cooper-Jones beating the drum that something's not right here.
So that was like a small victory.
In recusing himself, DA Barnhill denied any allegations of bias.
But he made sure before he left to write a letter to the Glenn County Police saying, this is self-defense, there's no criminal charges warranted, nothing to see here, is basically the tenor of the letter.
And so he created the foundation of the argument that they did nothing wrong.
In his letter, DA Barnhill writes, "It's our conclusion that there's insufficient probable cause to issue arrest warrants at this time."
It's shocking for a prosecutor to make that statement.
Really what Wanda had said, that this was being swept under the rug, it was laid bare in that letter.
It was the get out of jail free card for the McMichaels.
The case is then handed over to another district attorney, Tom Durden.
Tom Durden, the third DA in the case, was considering convening a grand jury. But because of the pandemic, the courts in Georgia were closed. How frustrating was it for the family?
It seems like everyone is going on with their life. But we're still stuck here and we're screaming at the top of our lungs and nobody's listening to what happened.
It had been 2 months since her son's death, and out of the blue, a New York Times reporter reaches out to Wanda about telling Ahmaud's story.
I told him what I was up against, and he said, I can help. And Ms. Roberts, no one had ever told me that.
It was the first time the case got attention in the national media.
Her pursuit of justice proved it was more to the story.
What came a few weeks later would shock the nation. Just 36 seconds of grainy video. Suddenly the world knows the name Ahmaud Arbery.
That was really where the case took a big turn.
It was sickening. I can't say this any more clear. It was like he was treated like an animal, gunned down.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.